Northern Alaska in late November feels less like a place and more like something waiting. The sun barely rises. The snow doesn't fall, it drifts sideways, and the forest doesn't move. But it watches. The ranger station stood alone inside Denali's outer wilderness, miles away from the nearest town. A wooden watchtower lifted above endless pine trees, its windows glowing faint amber against the blue-black snow. At night, the wind made the tower creak like old bones adjusting. No one visited after dark. No one was supposed to. Inside that tower lived Daniel Harper. And that winter, something changed. Daniel Harper wasn't born afraid of the woods. He was born into them. He grew up in a small town outside Fairbanks. His father worked logging jobs. His mother was a nurse who worked night shifts. Their home sat at the edge of a frozen river where winter lasted longer than childhood. Daniel had always been quiet, not shy, just observant. As a boy, he preferred the sound of wind over the sound of people. He learned early how to read snow tracks. He knew how to tell when an animal had passed through hours earlier. But what stayed with him most was something his father once told him. If you ever hear someone calling your name in the woods at night and you know nobody's there, don't answer. Daniel laughed at the time. He didn't laugh years later. At 28, Daniel became one of the youngest rangers assigned to the outer wilderness perimeter. He wasn't married, didn't have many friends, didn't need noise. The isolation suited him. His job was simple. Monitor wildlife movement, check for illegal campers, respond to emergency radio calls, and most importantly, ignore false distress signals. Because in Alaska, sound travels strangely. Sometimes wind through trees sounds like screaming. Sometimes foxes sound like children crying. And sometimes you can't explain it at all. It started on December 14th, 2:17 a.m. Daniel was awake. He always was around that time. The radio crackled, static. Then faintly, a scream. Not loud, not close, just distant, and cut off. Daniel froze. He adjusted the frequency. Nothing. No emergency signal. No camper reports. No missing persons logged. Just wind. He told himself it was wildlife. He wrote nothing in the log. But he didn't sleep after that. 3 nights later, 2:17 a.m., the scream came again, this time clearer, longer, human. Daniel stood up, grabbed his flashlight, stepped outside the tower. The forest was still. No wind, no movement, no tracks in the snow. But something felt wrong. Not danger. Not yet. Just wrong. He whispered into the darkness. "Hello?" The forest did not answer. But far off, between the trees, 2 faint amber lights blinked and disappeared. After the second scream, Daniel stopped pretending it was wildlife, but he didn't report it either. Because reporting meant paperwork. Paperwork meant investigation. Investigation meant outsiders, and Daniel hated outsiders in the woods. The days grew heavier. He stopped shaving. He stopped logging minor activity reports. He started watching the tree line longer than necessary. At night, he kept the lantern off, just in case something was watching back. And every night at 2:17, he waited. December 21st, 2:17 a.m. The scream didn't come immediately. The radio stayed silent. The forest stayed still. Daniel almost felt relieved. Then, it came from outside. Not through the radio, not distant, not distorted. Right outside the tower, a woman's voice, screaming. Not words, just pain. Daniel's heart didn't race, it slowed. That was the moment he knew. It wasn't a lost hiker, because no one could reach this far without leaving tracks. He grabbed his rifle, opened the door. The snow was untouched, perfect, unbroken, except 20 feet from the tower, there was a single footprint, bare, human, and facing the tower. Daniel didn't follow the footprint. He went back inside, locked the door, sat down, and that's when the memory returned. His father's voice. "If you hear someone calling your name in the woods at night, don't answer." Daniel whispered to himself. "It hasn't said my name." Not yet. He didn't sleep. He didn't move. At 2:43 a.m., 3 knocks hit the bottom of the tower, slow, heavy. Wood groaned under the weight. Daniel didn't check. He just listened. Another knock, closer, as if something was climbing. It didn't knock again. It spoke, soft, from directly below him. "Daniel." His breath stopped. The voice wasn't distorted. It wasn't monstrous. It sounded like him. Same tone, same cadence, like hearing a recording of yourself. "Daniel, open the door." The radio on his desk flickered on by itself. Static. Then the same voice repeated through the speaker. But this time, it was slightly delayed, as if echoing from 2 places at once. Daniel stepped back from the desk. For the first time since childhood, he felt fear, not of something outside, but of something that knew him. After it said his name, nothing. No scratching, no footsteps, no more knocks. Just silence. And somehow, that was worse. Daniel stood there for nearly 10 minutes, staring at the trap door that led down the tower stairs, waiting for another sound. It never came. At 3:02 a.m., the radio shut off by itself. The snow outside continued falling. By morning, there were no footprints, not even the bare one. The ground was smooth again, as if the forest had corrected a mistake. Daniel did not log the incident. He did not call headquarters. Instead, he moved the desk away from the window. Over the next week, Daniel stopped going down after sunset, even for patrol. He told himself it was weather protocol, but it wasn't. He kept the rifle beside him at all times. He covered the lower windows with old blankets. He unplugged the radio at night, but every night, 2:17 a.m., he woke up, not because of a sound, because of a feeling, like someone was standing at the foot of the tower, looking up, waiting. One night he tested something. At exactly 2:16 a.m., he whispered into the dark, "I'm not coming down." The wind outside stopped, completely, and then a slow exhale rose from below the floorboards. Not anger, not rage, disappointment. 3 days later, a supply helicopter tried to reach him. No radio response. Protocol required a written status entry. When they finally reviewed Daniel's digital logs later, the final 3 entries read, December 24th, 2:17 a.m. It knows the schedule. December 25th, 2:17 a.m. It knows my voice. December 26th, 2:17 a.m. It is learning. After that, no more entries. On December 27th, at exactly 2:17 a.m., headquarters received 1 transmission, clear, no static. It was Daniel's voice, calm, steady. "I understand now. I shouldn't have answered." A pause. Then, another voice spoke over him. Same voice, perfectly synchronized. "We shouldn't have answered." The transmission cut. The tower went dark. When the recovery team arrived 2 days later, the tower door was open. No signs of struggle, no blood, no broken glass. Daniel's rifle was still inside. His boots were still by the stairs. The snow outside was untouched. Except for one detail, around the base of the tower, there were dozens of bare human footprints, all facing inward, as if something had stood there, in many positions, watching. The final transmission wasn't ignored. It couldn't be. 2 identical voices speaking in perfect sync. That wasn't static interference. That wasn't echo. Audio technicians isolated the recording, slowed it down, layered the frequencies, and that's when they found it. There weren't 2 voices. There were 3. The third voice was lower, almost underneath the others, whispering the words before Daniel said them, as if feeding him the lines. Digging through archived Ranger files uncovered something unsettling. Daniel wasn't the first. In 1989, a fire lookout stationed 20 miles south logged repeated night screams. His final note read, "It won't scream forever. Eventually, it talks." He disappeared. In 1972, a winter patrol officer reported his own voice calling from the tree line. He requested immediate reassignment. He vanished 3 days later. Every case shared one detail. The activity began at the same time, 2:17 a.m., not 2:15, not 2:20. Exactly 2:17. Satellite imagery was reviewed from the night Daniel disappeared. Thermal cameras caught nothing unusual near the tower. But infrared showed something strange. For exactly 3 minutes at 2:17 a.m., the temperature around the base of the tower dropped drastically. Not colder air, absence of heat, like something absorbing it. And then a brief heat signature appeared, standing upright, 9 feet tall, directly facing the tower. Then it was gone. Wildlife experts ruled out animals. Psychologists suggested isolation-induced auditory hallucinations. But hallucinations don't leave footprints, and they don't transmit over radio frequencies. Native folklore researchers were contacted quietly. One elder described something chilling. A presence that does not hunt bodies. It hunts identity. It listens first, learns speech patterns, waits for acknowledgement, and once you answer it, it doesn't need you anymore. It becomes you. The tower was eventually reopened. Budget reasons, staff shortage. Officially, Daniel was classified as lost during patrol. The new ranger, Michael Torres, arrived in early February. Younger, confident, less superstitious. On his first night, he reviewed old maintenance logs. Most had been erased, but one audio file remained buried in the system. Timestamp, December 27th. He pressed play. Daniel's voice filled the room, calm, steady. "I understand now. I shouldn't have answered." Michael frowned. Then, from outside the tower, a familiar voice whispered, "Michael." He froze. He had not introduced himself over radio yet. The whisper came again, clearer. "Michael, open the door." The digital clock beside him changed, 2:17 a.m., and then another voice joined it, synchronized, perfectly matched. "We've been listening." Michael didn't open the door. He remembered the training manuals. He remembered the archived cases. He remembered Daniel's last words, "I shouldn't have answered." The whisper outside shifted. It was no longer calling. It was speaking softly to itself, repeating phrases, testing tones, trying different emotions. Michael slowly unplugged the radio, turned off the lantern, sat in darkness. The clock changed to 2:18 a.m. Silence. He waited. Nothing happened. No knocking, no climbing, no breathing under the floorboards. After an hour, exhaustion won. He slept. Morning came gray and windless. Michael stepped outside carefully. The snow was untouched. Relief flooded him. Maybe it had left. Maybe it needed acknowledgement. Maybe Daniel had. He stopped, 20 feet from the tower. There was a single bare footprint, facing away. Not toward the tower, away, as if something had walked off into the trees. Satisfied. Final scene, 6 months later. Spring melted the snow. Tourists returned. Wildlife reports normalized. No more screams. No more incidents. Michael never heard the voice again. He stopped thinking about it. Mostly. Until June 14th. A routine radio check from headquarters came in late at night. "Tower 12, confirm status." Michael grabbed the mic. "Tower 12, all clear." Static. "Then," headquarters replied. But the voice wasn't the dispatcher's. It was Michael's. Perfect. Calm. All clear. The real dispatcher came back seconds later. Tower 12, repeat. We just received your transmission. Michael stared at the radio. His hands hadn't touched it. The digital clock blinked. 2:17 a.m. The forest outside was completely still, and somewhere deep between the trees, a voice practiced saying his name.